Hi and welcome to Be More Super, the podcast. I'm Brian, your host, and this week, amongst all the craziness that's happening in the world at the moment with the coronavirus, we've got a great guest on the podcast. It's the wonderful Thomas Jane. Thomas Jane has starred in many hits, from The Predator to The Mist, Deep Blue Sea, and my personal favourite, he played Frank Castle in The Punisher. So sit back and relax and enjoy this episode. And remember, if you did like it, please like, subscribe, and share the love with all your friends. And look forward to the upcoming guests like John Snyder, who I'm going to be recording with in the next couple of days, the star of Dukes of Hazzard and Smallville. And of course, this episode is brought to you by the wonderful people at Prop Store of London. So hop over to their website, propstore.com, and check out all the stuff they've got, because they've got a great sale on and the payment plans are back on the table. So now you can afford, anything that you'd like. You can pay it off over 2 months to 6 months. So why not pop over to propstore.com and check it out. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Be More Super, the podcast.
Up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane!
It's Superman.
An action-packed podcast where we'll discuss all things entertainment.
You're the answer to are we alone in the universe?
Conventions, prop collecting, cosplay, interviews, reviews, and so much more. The show starts with host Brian Gardner right now.
Mr. Thomas Jane, how the hell are you?
Where are you, Brian?
I am in the UK. I'm in, sunny England, but it's 1 o'clock in the morning right now.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be a scorcher tomorrow, but the only thing I'm concerned about is the dimwits that don't get the fact of social distancing and, staying indoors. We've got to lock down.
Right.
We've got to avoid each other.
That's why we're staying inside and avoiding the dimwits, I would think, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've got to still work. I've got to work at, in about 5.5 hours, I've got to leave for work. And I've got to say, it's so frustrating seeing people just not, abiding by the rules. But hey,
How do you get to work, Brian? Do you drive or do you take the train?
No, I drive. I live about 6 minutes away from work, so it's not that bad.
Well, that's good. And at least you're in a car.
Exactly.
Isolated.
Yeah, exactly.
Are they even running the trains? Do the trains even run right now?
Yeah, so public transport is still working. You can only travel now to work if you can't work from home.
Right.
But you're seeing a lot of people out walking. They're allowed, daily exercise, but you are seeing parks with people still gathering, which the police are trying to curb.
Same here in Los Angeles. I live in Silver Lake, which is a few minutes from downtown LA, and there's a lot of really nice little parks, and it's a beautiful part of the city. There's a lot of foliage, greenery, hills, hiking paths. We have, of course, Silver Lake, which people run around all the time. And there's a lot of dimwits who aren't respecting the social distancing here either. They did shut down the parks. But of course, people still wander out. The city's so big, we don't really have enough people to properly patrol anything. But I heard, people are saying stuff like, the next jogger that comes up behind me, I'm going to trip him.
Yeah. Thing is, though, I mean, we're getting a lot of people that unfortunately are getting in their cars and traveling 50 miles to the seaside to have a little holiday, because it's bank holiday this weekend in the UK. So everyone's just being mad. But hey, do you know what? Out of all this madness, it's people like yourself that are giving up the time to do an interview on my podcast. So hopefully to get people's minds off things for a short time and to be entertained. So Thomas Jane, you were born in Baltimore in Maryland, which I've been to quite a few times. It's a wonderful place. It's got a wonderful submarine in the harbour, which I've been on a couple of times, and it's the home of the good old Baltimore Ravens, the football team.
And it's got a wonderful crime rate.
To be honest,
for a while,
I felt safe there, in all fairness, but...
Oh, yeah, sure. But for a while there, we were the number one murder capital. And it would switch back between us, Washington, D.C., and I think Detroit.
Yeah.
But for a while there, Baltimore was up there at the top. It was a great town, portside town, and that's where I learned how to eat oysters and clams.
Yeah.
And crab, of course. Maryland crab is, I think, the best in the world.
It's fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, I went up to Delaware, and on the way up there, we stopped off at a few places and tasted the good old crabs. But what was it like growing up in Baltimore? It would have been in the 70s, the late 70s, that you would have been, I suppose,
that's right.
Realised that where you was. But was it a good place to grow up? Because obviously you left, but... growing up as a kid in Baltimore, was it a great experience?
I tell you, I was born in an Army hospital, Fort Meade.
Oh, right.
I think they've shut down since then. It would cost about $3.49 to be born because my mom and dad were both in the Army. They were in a MASH unit. They were actually in a MASH unit in Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
My dad, they came home. My mom was working at the hospital. My dad, wanted to go back to do a second tour of Vietnam.
Yeah.
And flipped a coin with a guy. There was one more spot, and he flipped a coin with a guy and lost. And so he got my mom pregnant, and stayed here. And after I was born, we bounced around Maryland. We lived near Pennsylvania, Cockeysville. We lived Gaithersburg, Germantown. We moved around a lot. My mom was also a Navy. Her dad was a career Navy man, so they bounced all over the world. My mom grew up in Japan and Germany. Finally settled in Alabama. So we were restless. We were a restless young family. We could never really stay in one spot at the same time. So after I was born in Baltimore, we actually bounced around all over Maryland, and then ended up in Rockville. It's sort of the suburbs, when back then it was just kind of farmland with suburbs. Beautiful. It was actually an amazing place to grow up because once I turned 16, me and all my friends bought Camaros. I had a 73. My buddy had a 68. He had more money. His family came from a little bit of money, so he had a cherry 68 convertible Camaro. And my other buddy had a 79. And we used to go down to the Dulles Airport is outside of Washington, D.C., and we'd drive out there to the Dulles Access Road, which is just a straightaway stretch of 5 miles of blacktop. And we would race the fuck out of these cars.
Wow.
The American cars are great at going straight. You don't want to go around on a track, right? They don't handle that well. But for going straight, they're just so much fun. And that was kind of my teenage years in sort of the suburbs, the farmland of Maryland, and I had a blast. It was a really great place to grow up. There was fishing and woods. There's a lot of nature, a lot of woods. A lot of fishing, a lot of hunting. And I feel bad. My daughter's grown up in the city here in LA because her mom's an actress and her family is all here. So I never did get to give her that experience, but I think it's a hell of a lot better than growing up in the city, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. I mean, when you were small, when you was a young boy, what did you want to do when you was older? When you were older, did you always want to be an actor, or did you want to be something else?
Nobody really figures that out. What was amazing to me was that I I was a troubled teenager, so I spent a lot of time out of the house. The more time I spent out of the house, the better. So I played a lot of football.
Okay, cool.
And then I also was really into the art class, and the kids in the art class were all part of the theater group. And this was when I was in 9th grade. And they were a part of the theater group. And then they said, I was like, what do you guys do? Well, we build sets. We paint, we construct shit, we build shit, we play around with lights. I was like, this sounds fucking great, So I got involved in the after school. So instead of going home, I would hang out at the theater of our high school and do exactly that. We had a whole construction team and a paint team, and we were building the sets for a play. I didn't even know what play it was. And then I was always goofing off and cutting up, and they were like, you know what? It would be really funny is if you auditioned for the play and got a part in it and then ruined it, like on opening night. You could see, we came up with all these hilarious things that we would do to ruin the play that they were rehearsing and that we were building the sets for.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's do it. So I did. I auditioned for the play. I got a part. And then we were just so excited about how we were going to have this amazing, chaotic opening night of the theater. But as I was rehearsing and as I started hanging out with the theater kids and the director, then I went to my Carpenter boys and I was like, I think we just want to do the play. Play sounds really great, and that's what kicked it off for me. After that, I was an actor. I just knew I was, 14, maybe 15, and actually left the house, soon after that. I got a job at hardware store, sweeping floors. And I also dropped out of high school because I was like, why am I going to high school to learn all this crap when I already know what I want to do?
Yeah.
None of my friends had figured out what they wanted to do with their lives. But I knew, and I was committed. I was like, this is what I want to do. So I stopped going to high school, and my mom's neighbor said, she's, over the fence, right? Like my boy fucking won't go to school. I don't know what to do with him. And he wants to be an actor of all things. We're in the suburbs of Maryland. And she goes, well, I actually work right next to an acting class in Bethesda, and it's above a liquor store. But it's just the Maryland Academy of Dramatic Arts. So I enrolled there. I met a fantastic guy named Ralph Tabakin, who was an old guy. He'd done vaudeville. He'd done radio, he'd done Broadway, he'd done movies. He was in Barry Levinson's films. You can see him in Wag the Dog. You can see him in Diner. You can see him in, young Sherlock Holmes. Great character actor. And he taught me the ropes, literally. He said I had a funny way of walking. I shuffled my feet. And my hair was in my eyes, and I was a very shy kid. And he goes, Tom, you got to learn how to walk, So he got this rope, and he put a loop on each end of the rope. There was a loop, and then some rope, and then another loop. And he hung it on a nail on stage. And every time I got up on stage, I have to take that rope off and put one loop around one foot, the other loop around the other. And that would teach me how to walk.
That's amazing.
So I'm sweeping the floors at the Heckinger's, the hardware store, and I get a phone call there on the payphone, and it's Ralph. And Ralph says, "Listen, there's some Indians, and they're making an Indian movie, and they want you to audition." I said, "Well, back up. First of all, Indians like cowboys and Indians? No, with the dot." The guys with the dot, they're in town, and they're making an Indian movie, and they're looking for this kid. They're looking for a white kid with blonde hair, blue eyes. Go down there and to star in this movie. I was like, but Ralph, I can't do it. Why the hell not? Because I don't have blue eyes. My eyes are green, Ralph. He goes, you got blue eyes now, pal. You go down there and you go get the part. And when you do, you give me 10%. He goes, because I'm acting like your agent, like right now.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen footage of a bit of footage from that Bollywood, film that you did, and I've got to say, you've got some moves. Did you expect to be dancing that much?
I had no idea, man. I had no idea that it was that Bollywood. Every 5 minutes they want to sing or dance or both. He was like, and movies go on forever. They're like 3 hours long.
I know, yeah, and they make movies like every other day. It's like the fastest industry over in India. It's amazing. I mean, what were the biggest obstacles that you faced, getting into acting in the industry?
Getting a job. I mean, all of it. It is one of the most daunting sort of endeavors. When you get into it. I would go to casting calls, and there would be literally 400 people standing in line.
Yeah.
And learning how to audition, get up in front of a group of strangers, and you've got 60 seconds to, do something amazing. And then thank you, goodbye. Laying awake at night and going, what the hell am I doing? Not wanting to get a full-time job, because I knew that if I did get a job that I'd have to, quit and go do an acting gig, So I was a Mongolian barbecue chef. I swept up the floors at sex clubs, after they closed at 4 in the morning. I handed out balloons. I trimmed trees. I slung coffee for a long time. I was a coffee barista.
Yeah. And did you ever want to give up at any point, or were you driving forwards all the time?
There's always, for me, you go through a dark night of the soul, and periodically, where where I would lay in bed at night, and it would be 2:00 in the morning, but I'd stare at the ceiling and go, "What am I doing? What am I doing?"
But you didn't give up, and you're here now. Is featured in many movies and TV programs. I mean, you're a busy man, Thomas. Absolutely busy.
Am I?
Not only acting, well, not at the moment. Well, I don't know. You might be with the lockdown. But you are a busy man. But you've also had the time to start your own company as well, Raw Studios. So for all the listeners that may not know what Raw Studios are, what exactly do the studio do?
I'll tell you, Raw Studios, I started about 10 years ago, and we had a blast. I got to work. Always been a huge comic book guy. So I was able to, after I did The Punisher, meet a whole lot of my heroes in the comic book industry. And so I started a company, and we all worked together, me and Tim Bradstreet, who did all the Punisher covers, all the great ones. Google Bradstreet, you'll see what an artist he is. And then Steve Niles, who actually we came from Washington, both came from the Washington, D.C. punk rock scene. Okay. I had seen Steve Niles in his band down at a crappy little bar, and his band was called Gray Matter. And I actually had one of his little, what are they called? They're not 45s, but they're like 75. I forget now. In between an LP and a 45, there's a middle one.
An EP.
An EP. And I had his record. So we hooked up, and that was really fun. And we had a good time for a number of years writing and producing our own comic books, and we did 4 of them. And we did several Bad Planets, which is a sci-fi thing.
Yep.
We did several Alien Pig Farm 3000. So fun. We just had a blast. And then I actually have one more book that I'm trying to get going. It's a werewolf book called The Lichen, and it's a really great script.
Is that the one that you're eventually wanting to put out as a series or a movie?
I don't know. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I do. I do think it would make a wonderful, production. But right now, I just want to been looking for an artist for a number of years. The problem is the artists, I'm very picky, and the artists I love are all under contract, to either Marvel or one of the big companies. And what's the tricky part is to get that sweet spot where the guy is talented enough that he's going to be working for Marvel or DC, but he hasn't done so yet. So it's that little sweet spot where I could grab an artist and get that going. And I've had a couple of false starts, where I've had the artist, but then the artist for whatever reason fell out. I actually have 2 issues completed, but now I think I'm going to have to start from scratch because I want the art to be continuous. I don't want it to jump around from artist to artist. So, yeah. But that was primarily what that was about. That's Raw Studios, and you can go to rawstudios.com and you can see we have actually a very lively forum that's been going on for 10, 12 years now, and there's a lot of people on there, and they talk about all kinds of shit, from movies to everything, comic books and movies, and it's a really fun little forum. And now. What my new venture is, I just started a new production company called Renegade.
Yep.
Now, Renegade is all movies and television. And we actually acquired the rights to Stephen King's novel From a Buick 8, which he wrote in 2003, right after 9/11. So a very cool story. And we just signed on an A-level director and some terrific writers. And of course, right as we were going to go pitch the Netflixes, Amazons, Hulus, Apples of the world, we all got shut down. So we're just basically everybody's on hold, and we're waiting for everything to waiting for the lockdown to end so we can go sell this thing. But that's exciting. And then we've got 2 or 3 other television and film projects. So we've actually had some good success with Renegade. Yeah. And that is the focus of my, of the next 10 years of my life.
Excellent. So talking about the last 10 years, well, a bit further back, The Punisher, absolutely one of my favourite movies of all time. I even got the wife to sit down and watch it. She doesn't normally like action movies. And she loved it. So, you've got my wife's approval. Shell absolutely loved it. But for me, it's probably one of my favourite Marvel movies of all time. It really, really is. Only because I'm getting tired of seeing... I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a massive Superman fan since I was born. But I like the gritty, the real movies where someone hasn't got superpowers. They get hurt, they get knocked down, and it's a bit like a Rocky story. And with The Punisher, apparently you turned it down a couple of times, and then you took the part. What changed your mind about it?
Well, that's exactly well, you just said it. I love comic books, and I always have. Yeah. But my collection of comics is all science fiction. It's all sci-fi. It's all horror. It's Western. It's crime. Yeah. I was a huge fan of EC comics. These are just they were more mature stories, and they had a beginning, middle, and end. They were short stories, or if they did go on, they were, like I'm a huge fan of Ed Brubaker's Criminal, stuff like that. I'm also a huge fan of Daniel Close, Charles Burns, anybody with a point of view that's unique. That's what, for me, comics is. It's not a soap opera in 4 colors. It's with people with extraordinary powers. I just personally never. That wasn't my jam. So when they offered me the Punisher, Marvel superhero, I said, it's not my thing. I just don't feel like I want to give everything that it deserves, because I'm sure people love it and they deserve somebody who loves it. And then they came back to me and they're like, well, why not? And they're like, well, he's done all these superhero movies. And then they explained to me that the Punisher, Frank, is not a superhero. And then they sent me some of the Bradstreet cover comic books, right, with the Bradstreet covers. And when I saw the Bradstreet covers, I saw what the movie could be, which is gritty, in much closer to the realm of a Martin Scorsese film than a comic book movie like Howard the Duck.
Yeah.
And that is what we attempted to do. They were, the battle for me was always that they were introducing elements that I thought were a little goofy, and because it was based on the Garth Ennis book, which is all fine, but my personal, I was constantly going, grittier, more real. Like this is why people love this,
Yeah.
And they were trying to walk the line between a certain grittiness and a certain idea of what a quote comic book movie end quote should be. But I think, and it was the only R-rated, Marvel movie that they'd done at the time. I think they did a couple more, but now they've sworn off R-rated. Although I think now, recently, Disney is now promising to make the new Punisher movie R-rated.
Well, we'll see on that one.
Right. So we were kind of the ugly duckling in the collection, right?
Yeah.
Right. So we're the sort of the outlier Marvel movie, and I'm proud of that.
Oh no, it was you know what? It's nice to see, as they say in America, R-rated or 18 rated here in the UK, and it's nice for a gritty movie for adults to enjoy from the Marvel universe. And in the movie, I think you use every weapon known to man, from a bow to a knife to guns. I mean, what sort of training did you do beforehand in the way of the weapons and everything like that? Because for me in the UK, we don't use guns. So for me, it's just fascination when I see all these guns. How did you learn to use them? Did you have the training beforehand, I presume?
That was probably my favorite part of the whole Punisher experience was the training. I had a great trainer named Christine Hazelton who kicked my ass. Muscle wise, and then I switched to another trainer at the behest of Marvel, who was I think he was a SEAL. I started training with a Navy SEAL, and then I got a couple of guys who actually did the actual weapons training, and that was and those guys were Navy SEALs. So I was being trained by the best of the best.
Yeah.
And in a short period of time, and that's part of the actor's challenge. You got to be able to pick stuff up quickly, put it in your body, and be able to execute it. But those guys, they're the sweetest. You meet them, they're the nicest guys. You'd never think that they could, break your neck with 3 fingers, but they could.
Yeah, I can.
Very cool.
I can imagine.
Intensive training every day. You got to go for it. Get in it, go for it, and give it everything you got.
And I heard a funny story that you apparently, I don't know if this is true, you apparently actually stabbed Kevin Nash. Is this right?
Absolutely.
You sound proud.
Well, no, it was a horrible moment. And this happens, it's not, there's nobody to blame, but, because when you reset a scene and you're doing a scene and you do it and everything gets all fucked up and then everybody comes in and resets the set and the prop guy comes in and puts the knife back where it's supposed to be and puts this and that, So just on one take, the prop guy had left the real knife and had forgot to trade out the rubber knife. Yeah. And of course I grabbed it like it was a rubber knife and stabbed him like it was a rubber knife. And I stabbed him. I stabbed him in the chest. Now, fortunately, Kevin, he's all muscle. So, and I stabbed him in the breast, in the, what's it called? The pec. I stabbed him in the pec. So it didn't go in very far, but I stabbed him. I don't know, probably an inch or something, and there was that, yeah. And then I'm looking at a guy who's like 7'9" or something, and he's looking down at me, and I look at him, and I'm like, I just fucking stabbed you, didn't I? And he looks at me, he's like, you just fucking. I thought, here's the moment where we see who Kevin Nash really is, because he has every right to fucking knock me across the room, right? Like, what the fuck? You just fucking stabbed me, you know? But he didn't do that. He smiled at me and he goes, I think you stabbed me, pal.
Yeah,
And
he is a big fella, isn't he? He is a big fella.
Also just the sweetest guy, you know, which makes perfect sense because if you're that intimidating, you better start being nice to people if you want to have any friends.
Yeah, that's true.
And he is just such a sweet guy. But that really tested his mettle, and he took it like a fucking champ. In fact, I felt so bad about it. I sent him a case of beer the next day.
Bless you. And why no sequel to The Punisher? Because it was so good. And I think everyone was expecting another one. And I suppose we had to wait, I think, 8 or 9 years for Dirty Laundry to come out, the Punisher short, which I've got to say is fantastic.
A lot of people know this story, but I'll walk you through it. It's pretty simple. Of course, they were wanting to do a sequel. We went through several writers. In fact, even Rob Zombie once was gonna direct it. We were talking to Rob. We were talking to a lot of really interesting writers, and we couldn't, for whatever reason, we just hadn't found the story yet. You know, we hadn't found what the story could be. No writer had cracked it, you know, yet. And then I brought in. I went to Walter Hill. I mean, Walter Hill's done 48 Hours, The Driver, you know, Hard Times. Walter, he wrote Alien, for fuck's sake. The guy, he's a master. And in my opinion, a master director. Absolutely, without a question. If we could get Walter Hill, Thomas Jane, Punisher, I mean, what else do you want? I thought we had this in the bag. I got Walter. I talked to him. I pitched him the thing. He loved it. And we talked about story. We went into Lionsgate, and essentially Walter said, you know, I'll write it. I'll direct it. You know, you'll get a script. Give me notes. All that stuff. And they said no. They turned him down. They turned down Walter Hill. So, and by this time, we'd been through several permutations of what the story could be, and Lionsgate was always, you know, sort of like, that's not it, that's not it, that's not it. And when I brought them Walter Hill, I thought, you know, for me, there is no better version of what the Punisher is, you know, and I've been talking to them about making it more gritty, about what the fans had responded to in the first one and what they hadn't, and how to bring them something that was the ultimate, you know, pure Punisher film. And once they turned Walter down, I thought, well, these guys just don't understand what this movie should be. A couple weeks later, they said, here, we've hired a director. We're writing the script now, and we're going to shoot by the end of the year. Now, what I didn't know was that they had a certain amount of money to spend by the end of the year, and they'd allocated that to the Punisher film. So what they were doing was rushing the Punisher Part 2 into production.
Right.
They were rushing it into production so that they could spend that money by the end of the year for whatever tax thing. And so they hired this woman, and I said, well, great, you know, let me see what her. Why you hired her, you know, what's her first film? And they showed me this soccer movie. And I'm looking at this soccer movie, and I'm not saying this movie's good or bad. What I'm saying is, what the fuck? How did you get from this kid, it's like a kid's soccer movie, to the Punisher? And I just couldn't, I thought, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster. And I couldn't do it. I just said, guys, I can't do this. If you want to wait and do this right, I'm all in. But I'm not going to rush into production because you guys need to spend some money and hire someone who doesn't give me any indication that you know what kind of movie you want to make, you know. And, you know, they went ahead and made that movie, and it opened at the box office. I think it was $3 million. In other words, it tanked. Which I knew it would. You know, it wasn't rocket science. You know, the formula wasn't promising.
Yeah.
You know, and without any judgment, it's just sort. You know, it's casting, right? You want to cast the right people for the right parts. whether that's a writer or director or a cinematographer or a set designer, to accomplish what you want to do, which clearly they didn't really know. The sad part is that the head of Lionsgate, a year later, I saw him at a function, and he came up to me and he goes, "I just want to apologize. We really fucked up. We should have waited. We hired the wrong people." And I was like, "Thank you." That's the way it goes.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you want something done right. You don't want to rush it. The Punisher is a great movie. You don't want to follow it by, just rushing things. It's just not going to be great. So The Punisher, fantastic movie. The other movie that I absolutely got so much love for is Deep Blue Sea. I personally, I am scared to death of sharks. I will not swim in the sea, full stop. I won't even do the backstroke in a swimming pool, only because my dad at a young age told me the grate at the bottom of the swimming pool is to keep the sharks out. So he did that to stop me from going in the deep end.
Fantastic. I love it.
I know.
Your dad's my kind of guy.
Well, to be honest, my dad chucked me in the swimming pool when I was a baby to teach me how to swim. So
I don't know if that's so much.
I know he's ex-army. He's quite straight down the line. But
my old man was very similar.
Well, the thing is, I've got 2 little girls, so I'm definitely not going to be throwing them into the pool at a young age. But Deep Blue Sea, I saw it for the first time in a very old cinema, and I absolutely loved every minute of it. And reading up about Deep Blue Sea, apparently you did one scene swimming at the side of a real shark, but you only did the shot once, and only after you had you filmed all your parts for the movie.
Funny, right?
Is that true? And did they do that right at the end, just in case that shark was a bit, hungry?
Absolutely. That's right. They waited till we got everything else in the can, and then they threw me in the real ocean. They flew us all down to some place, I forget, some tropical place. And we all, went. A whole crew of us, went in the water and started swimming around with the shark people who would attract the sharks, right, with the chum, blood, and water. The sharks would come, and we're down there and we're filming, and yes, a camera assistant got bitten.
Wow!
Because he was paying out cable, right, as the camera, because everything was tethered, as the guy was swimming along with the camera, you had to have a camera assistant paying out the cable, right, as he's floating around. And because his arm is flashing out like that as he's paying cable out, it became and it just looks like his white, fleshy arm, and that's what attracted the shark and bit him on the arm.
And how scared were you, swimming with the shark? Were you okay with it, or?
Yeah, I mean, it was an adventure. We had, first of all, they weren't 12-foot sharks. They were, what were they? I can't remember. Thresher sharks, maybe. And these particular sharks were not notoriously known for going after people. So the setup was not insane. It was like, we had a lot of people around. We had a lot of professionals there, and all in all, it was a very successful day and an adventure, for me.
And what a way to end the production of the movie.
Yeah, I loved it.
And it's great. One of the scenes that I like is when you swim down and get the license plate from the shark's mouth, because I didn't realize that license plate is the one from Jaws.
Yeah, that's the Jaws nod to Jaws there, yeah. We just did the 20th anniversary here in Hollywood at the Chinese Theater.
I know, it makes me feel old.
Last year. That was fun. We got a whole bunch of people in the theater, and I was there, and we did a little interview afterwards, and it was very neat to see. It was a full theater. People like that movie.
I mean, the thing is, the movie still stands up. With so much CGI now in movies that can take away from the character work of the actors and the story. I think that many movies now use way too much CGI. But Deep Blue Sea definitely lives still up there. You know, what they achieved with the sharks were amazing. I mean, what was what was your favorite memory of working on Deep Blue Sea?
Well, we had a giant mechanical shark that they spent millions of dollars on, and it was a beautiful piece of art. You know, it was absolutely gorgeous, giant, fully functional robot mechanical shark. And it was tethered. Of course, it had these giant cables coming out of its ass. Which ran, and we had a big pool. We were filming at where they shot the Titanic. They built the water tanks for the Titanic, and that's where we were shooting. And we had the guys who had built and are operating it, and there's all these massive joysticks and controls how to drive this giant mechanical shark with a huge engine in it, and it worked. Can you fucking believe it? It was an amazing achievement to build that shark. And most of the shark that you see in the movie is that mechanical shark. Of course, there are some pretty crappy CGI shots in Deep Blue Sea, you know, but it was 1999 or whatever the fuck it was. So, you know, and that, you know, a little disappointing, but the mechanical shark was, I just thought he was, I was just in awe. And of course, there's a scene where I'm riding the shark at the end, right? Where I jump on it, you know, and I get tied to LL Cool J shoots me with a bow and arrow, you know, and shoots me right in the leg, and it goes into the shark, and now I'm stuck to the shark, and now we're diving. So we're shooting that scene. And so, of course, they have to strap me down to the shark. And there is no, you know, release, you know, they can't, it wasn't an easy thing for me to free myself from when they strapped me down to the shark, and then we're going to ride around, and the shark's going to go down, and it's going to dive under the water and swim around, and we got cameras in there. And they said, listen, if anything goes wrong, here's a little here they gave me a little tiny air bottle, right, with a nozzle on it. Like, you're stuck down there, you can use this to breathe.
That's very considerate.
So, of course, the first take, the shark goes haywire. You know, I'm strapped down to the shark. I can't get off. You know, they call action, and the shark starts diving, and it was swimming around, and it's doing its thing, and suddenly, and I could hear the motor. I could hear something in the motor go like, and then the shark just kind of starts diving, and it's a huge pool. I forget how deep it is, but it's deep. You know, 40 feet, 50 feet. I don't know. And this fucking thing starts diving toward the bottom, and I'm like, this can't be right, because the cameras are way the fuck up there. So now we're not even on camera, and the shark keeps diving and diving and diving and diving, and finally it just slams into the bottom and of the pool. And I'm like, okay, I wonder when I'm going to have to. Where was that little air bottle they gave me? And then the shark starts now going up, right? Obviously, the guys upstairs were like yanking back on the joystick, get the fucking shark out of the water. And it starts going, now it's going up, 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 up. They had it going up so fast because they wanted to get me the fuck out of there, that when the shark broke the water, it actually broke the water and went up and landed on the side of the pool with me on it.
Wow.
And I wish we had that footage. And because, you know, the guys up top, they told me later, they were like, get him up. You know, they were just like, pull all the way back on the joystick. And this thing, and that thing was so powerful. I don't know how many pounds it weighed, a lot. It broke the water and went up onto the side of the pool, with me on it. So that was fun.
What would you say is your proudest moment in your career, Thomas?
That's a heavy question. I don't know.
Very deep.
I've had a lot. I've had a lot of, you know, I loved playing Mickey Mantle.
Yeah.
I really had just a terrific time doing that.
Yeah, directed by Billy Crystal, of course.
Yeah, that was it. That was a dream, you know. Wake up every day. Not only do you get to play baseball every day, but you also shooting a movie. I mean, that was cool. Every day, and we shot at home, so I got to sleep in my house.
Oh, that's awesome.
For most of it, we went to Detroit for a little while, but that was fantastic. I really loved shooting Hung with Anne Heche, who's now my girlfriend. Yeah, I loved 1922. I was proud of the character that I created for Stephen King's 1922.
Yeah, you've got quite trend with Stephen King, because obviously you've got The Mist, which awesome movie. You've got 1922, Dreamcatcher, and obviously the new project with Renegade.
I do.
I'm
I've always been a
sorry,
Stephen King fan. My mom, is a big reader. My mom and dad are both big readers. So that was one of the gifts they gave me as a child, the gift of reading. Reading a book, discovering novels. So so I've read all of Stephen King's, most of Stephen King's stuff. So that was also a big joy for me to be able to do a couple of movies that I think are pretty good up there in the canon of Stephen King stuff. I love the ending of The Mist. I'm proud of that.
Oh, the ending. I mean, I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but wow.
I'm proud that we stuck to our guns there. And
talk about bringing a tear to a man's eye. I tell you what, it's just amazing movie. Keeps you on your edge all the time. And I can imagine you had so much, I would say, fun doing it, because it's got to be great to sink your teeth into a great character like that.
It was just a blast, and I love Darabont, and we worked really well together, and I also was very proud of the short film that I produced and executed, Dirty Laundry.
Oh, it's fantastic. That is.
Yes, I've got a lot of a lot to be out, lots to be proud of.
So when you're not working, what do you do to relax? What do you like doing?
Now, what I like doing is holding up in my hand. By the way, I hope this quarantine could go on for another year for me, because I'm in a beautiful house.
Yep.
I'm with a beautiful woman, and we make food every night. We read, we work on projects together. So we're and I really, to tell you the truth, this is like one of the highlights of the last few years for me. Like this, like every day is, and sure, you can't go outside, but fuck that. Who wants to go out there? I've got, we have our little our frozen steaks delivered, and we make a fire. We sit around and make a fire, and we read, and we talk, and we have fun, and we're creating stuff together. We're creating a little project together. And I'm having an absolute blast right now, and that's I'm a big reader. I'm always looking at stories. I just love it. I love the art of what we do, and how multifaceted it is, and how many different elements there are to play with in order to make something that's actually entertaining. It's such a challenge, and it's so hard, but it's also so fun, and it's and it never stop learning. You never stop figuring out the little secrets and the little tricks and the little truths, that separate sort of an average piece of work from a great one. And that's sort of my study, and I absolutely love to do it. And I love reading comics. Because that's an art unto itself, it's a pretty full. Really, if it's not somehow connected to the art of what I love, I don't do it. To tell you the truth, even if it's cooking, cooking, you can learn about dramatic arts from cooking. It's incredible, really. So I'm having a lot of fun.
Well, hopefully it won't last a year, because you're coming over to the UK. You were set to come over to Wales Comic Con last weekend, but obviously with everything that's happened, and it's just been advertised that you're coming back to Wales Comic Con in August for all the UK listeners, which is going to be awesome. Are you going to bring anything from Raw Studios with you to the convention?
I'm absolutely hoping that I can get a suitcase full of books, just to give away to some of the fans who really like comics and really like that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm hoping to do that.
That would be awesome.
A great graphic novel. Well, that's the other book we published. We did a graphic novel of my film Dark Country. So I'll hopefully bring some of those out too.
Well, I'll be there nice and early. I go twice a year. It's an absolutely awesome convention, I've got to say. Great venue as well. So I'm looking forward to August. And I've noticed in quite a few interviews that you do, you've normally got a cat on your lap. And I've got about 4 cats somewhere around. But you're also a lover of cigars. I have noticed, and I like a cigar every now and again, a Monte Cristo number 5. What sort of brand do you smoke?
Well, I smoke them all. Anything Cuban.
Anything Cuban.
Anything Cuban. There's so much to be said for each one, whether it's a Bolivar, a Partagas, or a San Cristobal, or a Romeo. But my go-to is consistently the Upman, the Magnum 50, and also the half Corona. There's a short half Corona that Upman makes. That is, you can smoke that in 25 minutes. Or there's the Magnum 50, which I could smoke all day. Yeah, and those are my two. I'm consistently ordering the Upman Magnum 50s, and the other one, and then I go back and forth with everything else. I always have those, and then I usually get something else. I'll get a Partagas, or I'll try something, interesting, a Quintero, or, and then there's the cheaper Cuban cigars, which I also like, which they sort of the second tier Cubans, which you can't really get. But whenever I'm in Canada, you can get them at the shop, so I just like the variety,
Yeah.
That's what I love. And recently I've taken up a pipe.
Yeah, I noticed actually. Yeah. And what do you put in the pipe? Is it just normal tobacco, or is it a different type?
Oh, whatever you can put in it. I mean, there's a lot.
It's locked down. Whatever you can get in there.
So I recently in January I directed an episode of The Expanse.
Yes, amazing.
And that's when I picked the pipe up. I thought that I needed something. Maybe a little bit. Fatherly. So I wore a sweater, and I picked up a pipe, and I always had it on set, and that was my directing gear. I had and it stuck with me. I was like, I like this pipe. So now I put in a little Captain Black. I like mixing it up with a Cavendish and a cherry.
Yep.
That's my thing. Yeah, I really like the black Cavendish, and then I mix it with cherry. And that mix for me is pretty sublime. I like it a lot.
Oh, that's awesome. And before, I'm just very cautious on the time. Before we wrap up, because I could speak to you for hours. We haven't covered half the movies and TV programs that I absolutely love. But before
we'll have to do it again.
Oh, definitely. That would be amazing. Maybe in August. When I see at Wales Comic Con, that would be fantastic. Before we finish, I want you to give the listeners a movie that you want them to watch of yours.
Of mine?
Yeah. Oh, no. So what film should the listeners, I mean, to be honest, they should be watching them all. But if you had to name...
I would say with this, during this COVID.
Yeah.
Right? The vid. Now that we're all locked down because of the vid, I would watch John Carpenter's The Thing.
Right. Okay.
Right. What is that? It's a bunch of people stuck together in a kind of lockdown with a disease. Of course, it's an outer space, but it's essentially a fucking horrible thing that you do not want to get. Carpenter's The Thing. There's only one. There is no other thing. There's The Thing, and it's John Carpenter. There's actually the Howard Hawks thing, which is also really worth a watch.
Yeah,
absolutely love the Howard Hawks thing. So there's that, and then there's Carpenter's, and that's it.
There we go. Get everyone to watch The Thing. Well, Thomas, thank you so much for giving me your time to interview. It's been an absolute pleasure, and it's definitely a tick off my bucket list to chat to. Sorry?
I'm sorry it's so late over there, pal, but it was.
It's all right.
I enjoyed the interview very much, so we'll have to do it again.
You've been listening to Be More Super, the podcast.
He was kind
kind of a crazy fun experience.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Listen, my whole family loves it, man.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button and share with your super friends.
In my world, it means hope.